The night sky above Urine looked like someone had spilled molten silver across a sheet of dark velvet. 2 moons hung low, distorted by the planet's thin, electric atmosphere. Beneath their pale glow, a procession moved through the desert, figures cloaked in blue, carrying torches that flickered with violet flame. They chanted softly, the rhythm so steady it seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the planet itself. At the center of the procession, bound to a floating slab of stone, lay Eliera. Her long ears twitched with every gust of the cold wind, her silver hair catching the light like strands of wire. She couldn't move her legs. She hadn't moved them since the fever took her spine 3 cycles ago. And tonight, apparently, that made her unworthy of life. She had asked her father, once, if mercy still existed among their kind. He'd said yes, but only for those who could walk toward it. Now, her mother looked away. Her father didn't. His expression was carved from the same stone that built their home, unmoved, cold, slightly embarrassed. That last part stung the most. They hadn't come to mourn. They'd come to make peace with their own guilt. When the slab tilted toward the well, Eliera closed her eyes. The torches vanished from sight, swallowed by darkness. She fell, her body weightless in the alien silence. For a fleeting moment, she thought she could hear her heartbeat echoing against the stone walls, syncing with the planet's pulse. Then, impact. Cold water. Pain. Then nothing at all. Time drifted. Dreams came and went like static bursts, flashes of memory, of laughter, of her brother chasing luminous sand lizards through the dunes. She dreamed of stars whispering her name. Then, gradually, she woke. Above her, impossibly high, the well's opening glowed like a distant sun. The air was heavy with bioluminescent spores, glowing faint green as they floated on invisible currents. She couldn't move her legs, but she could still think, still curse, and she did both extensively. Great. The family throws me down a cosmic trash chute, and I survive. Typical. Somewhere above, faint mechanical whirring echoed down the shaft. It grew louder, closer, and then, bang. A small, metallic object crashed into the water beside her, splashing her with cold droplets. She squinted at it. The thing blinked. Literally, it had lights for eyes. Hello? A male voice came from the object, garbled and panicked. If anyone finds this, please tell Captain Horowitz that the shuttle's navigation system is a lying piece of junk and, wait, is that water? Eliera frowned. Who's talking? Who's talking? You're talking. Oh, thank the stars, I thought I'd landed on another uninhabited rock. I'm not a rock, she said dryly. I'm a woman. Right, right. Totally knew that. This is fine. Everything's fine. The small drone spun awkwardly in the air, emitting smoke. This is awkward, but are you, by any chance, in a hole? You could call it that. There was a pause. Well, the voice said, lucky for you, I specialize in terrible situations. Name's Ronan Vale. Human. Mostly intact. Hold tight, I'm coming down. Before she could protest, a bright beam cut through the darkness above. Something descended, a rope, followed by a man in a battered exosuit. He hit the water with the grace of a falling anvil and immediately started coughing. Oh, perfect, he muttered. Alien water. Probably radioactive. Love that. Eliera blinked at him, stunned. He looked ridiculous, soaked, panting, grinning like an idiot. You jumped in, she said. Yeah, well, he replied, still catching his breath, you sounded like you could use company. Plus, my drone told me you were a woman, and statistically, that's the best reason humans do dumb things. Despite herself, she laughed. The sound echoed strangely through the well. You're insane. Certified, he said proudly, wringing out his sleeve. So, how do we get out of here? You tell me. You're the one with the plan. Plan? Oh, no. I just have enthusiasm. Plans are for smart people. He shined his wrist light around. The well's walls were covered in strange runes, glowing faintly as if aware of their presence. Ha, he murmured. Either that's alien graffiti or this place has Wi-Fi. Eliera watched him curiously. You're not afraid? Of what? Darkness, possible death, the fact that I might have just interrupted an alien ritual? Nah. He paused, glancing upward. Okay, maybe a little. For the first time in her life, Eliera didn't feel entirely alone in the dark. This foolish, fearless human had jumped into a bottomless pit for her without knowing who she was or what danger waited below. She should have found him absurd. Instead, she found him oddly reassuring. He looked around again, water dripping from his helmet. All right, he said, let's survive this, find whoever threw you down here, and give them a strongly worded review. Eliera smiled faintly. You're going to regret this. Lady, Ronan said, tightening his belt and looking up toward the distant light, I already do. Somewhere deep in the stone, something rumbled, soft, ancient, alive. Both of them froze. Ronan swallowed. Tell me that's just the plumbing. She shook her head. No. That's Urine. It's awake now. And as the air shimmered around them, the faintest hint of laughter rose from the walls, not hers, not his, but the well's. Ronan woke up to the sound of dripping water and his own snoring echoing back at him. For a moment, he had no idea where he was. The stone ceiling above glowed faintly with blue spores, the air thick and humming with static. Then it came back to him, the crash, the fall, the alien well, and the woman with the long ears who looked like she could both curse him and thank him in the same breath. He sat up, wincing. Every muscle in his body protested. Okay, he muttered, note to self, next time someone says, don't jump into strange holes, maybe listen. Eliera was already awake, leaning against the curved wall. The faint light made her look almost ethereal, her silver hair glowing where it caught the spores. She didn't seem surprised to see him conscious. You make strange noises when you sleep, she said. Like a dying beast. That's my charm, he said, rubbing his eyes. Keeps predators away. Sometimes friends too. She raised an eyebrow, the motion oddly graceful for someone half paralyzed. You have friends? Used to, he said, grinning. Then I joined the Space Corps. Now I just have co-workers who hope I explode before payday. Eliera didn't laugh, but her mouth twitched slightly. Ronan took it as a win. He stood and looked around. The walls of the well weren't uniform anymore, the deeper he'd fallen, the more they'd changed. Glimmering veins of metal twisted through the stone like circuitry. Every few seconds, faint pulses of light moved through them, traveling upward toward the surface. This place is alive, he said softly. It's older than our people, she replied. The wells were built before memory. Some say they reach the planet's heart. Some say they lead to other worlds. Or maybe it's a very fancy trash can, Ronan said. Your family seemed eager to use it that way. She glanced at him sharply, then sighed. We discard what we fear. It's tradition. He crouched beside her, checking the makeshift sling he'd tied around her waist. Well, consider me your new, non-traditional solution. Step 1, don't die in glowing alien water. Ambitious, she said dryly. Step 2, climb out. Step 3, complain about it forever. He tested the rope, tugging it against a jagged rock. It groaned but held. Good enough, he said. Now, if this breaks, we fall into oblivion. Sound fun? I can't feel my legs, she said flatly. You'll have to enjoy the falling part for both of us. Great. Teamwork. He looped the rope around his waist, slid her arms over his shoulders, and braced himself. All right, Princess Gravity, hold tight. You're heavier than you look, she said. That's muscle. And despair. He started climbing. The stone was slick, and his gloves slipped more than once. Every few meters, the wall trembled faintly, releasing a soft, musical hum. The air grew warmer the higher they went. Ronan squinted up. I think the well's humming. It reacts to life, Ilyara murmured near his ear. It hasn't felt this much in centuries. Lucky us, he grunted. We're the sparkly tourists waking up the haunted infrastructure. Halfway up, a pulse of light shot through the stone, racing upward. The walls shimmered, projecting faint images, figures of alien shape, tall and elegant, their ears even longer than Ilyara's, their eyes like molten glass. They moved like memories caught in crystal. Ilyara gasped softly. Those are the firstborn. The ones who built Yurine. Ronan looked around in awe. Holograms? Or ghosts? On this world, she whispered, there's no difference. One of the glowing figures turned toward them, its mouth opening in silent motion. A vibration rippled through the rope. Then a voice echoed, not through the air, but inside their minds. Return the broken one to the deep. Ronan blinked. Okay, nope. Not a fan of brain voices. The well doesn't want me to leave, Ilyara said, her voice trembling. He tightened his grip on her. Yeah, well, I'm not great at taking orders from talking architecture. The wall shook harder, dust falling like ash. The rope jerked sideways, then held steady again. Ronan swallowed. You ever think your planet might have trust issues? Ilyara's tone was faintly amused despite the danger. You insult our gods while clinging to their walls. Brave or foolish? Statistically, he said, pulling them upward another meter. Both. They climbed in silence for a while. Ronan's arms screamed, his breath ragged. When they finally reached a ledge wide enough to rest on, he all but collapsed, Ilyara still draped across his back. He set her down carefully. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. You didn't have to do this, she said quietly. Sure I did, he said, leaning against the wall. You're the only person on this planet who doesn't want me dead yet. That's a rare honor. She tilted her head. You risked your life for a stranger. Yeah, well, strangers are less likely to file complaints. He grinned, but her gaze softened. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable this time. The faint glow from the walls painted their faces in shades of blue and gold. Then, from above, a faint sound echoed, something metallic scraping against stone. Ronan tensed. Please tell me that's just the wind. Ilyara listened. No. That's machinery. Someone's opened the well. He frowned. Your people. They wouldn't return, she said. They think I'm dead. Then who? The light above brightened suddenly. A new shadow fell across the well's mouth, massive and round, like the hull of a ship. Ronan blinked. Wait a minute. That's human tech. He slapped his wrist console, static flickering across its cracked screen. The Solstice run. They must have tracked my crash beacon. Ilyara looked up at the strange glow in wonder. More of your kind. Yeah, he said, smiling weakly. And they're either here to rescue me, or to yell about property damage. A faint mechanical voice echoed down. Unidentified life signs detected. Retrieval in progress. Ronan sighed. See. They sound friendly already. Ilyara frowned. Will they take me too? He hesitated. They'll try. And we'll make sure they succeed. But deep in the stone beneath them, something shifted again, something ancient, heavy, angry. The walls pulsed once more, brighter this time, and the whispering voice returned, louder, almost pleading. Return the broken one. Return her to the deep. Ronan met Eliara's gaze. You hear that? Yes. They fell longer than physics should have allowed. The air itself seemed to twist around them, folding space like crumpled paper. Ronan had the vague, horrifying sense that gravity on Urine was taking creative liberties. He tried to scream something heroic, but it came out as, "We're going to die extremely inconveniently." Eliara's hair streamed like a comet behind her, glowing in the phosphorescent wind, and though her expression was calm, her voice was sharp. "Hold tighter, human." He did, mostly out of terror, partially out of instinct. The fall ended with a soft impact, as if invisible hands caught them before they hit the ground. They landed on something that felt alive, warm, slightly pulsing beneath them. Ronan rolled over and blinked. The surface was a field of bioluminescent vines, glowing a soft blue-green, spreading as far as his light could reach. He let out a breath. "Okay," he said. "If this is the afterlife, it's got better lighting than expected." Eliara stirred beside him. "We're deeper than the surface dwellers have ever gone," she said, her voice echoing slightly. "This place shouldn't exist." Ronan looked around. Strange structures loomed in the distance, spires made of glass and metal, floating above the glowing ground, connected by bridges of light. The air shimmered with energy. He pulled out his cracked scanner, which immediately began beeping like it was having an existential crisis. "Yeah," he muttered. "That's not supposed to happen. My radiation detector just registered emotional distress." Eliara managed a faint smile. "Your machines are dramatic." "Runs in the family," he said. "Also, I think this whole area is one giant power source. Maybe a planetary reactor. Or a rave." They began moving, or rather, he carried her, and she offered directions in the tone of a queen mildly judging her servant. He didn't mind. It gave her a kind of dignity. The deeper they went, the stranger the light became. Changing color with every breath, pulsing in rhythm to their footsteps. Then, faintly at first, came the whispering again. Not from the walls this time, but from the air itself, vibrating through his bones. "Return her." Ronan groaned. "Oh, come on." Again with the ominous guilt trip. Eliara's hand gripped his arm. "It's the deep voice. The ancient core. It guards the planet's lifeblood. It doesn't understand mercy." He looked down at her, his face shadowed by the faint green glow. "Then we'll have to teach it." She studied him. "You can't fight a planet." He smirked. "Lady, I once argued with a malfunctioning vending machine for 40 minutes. I'm practically overqualified." They reached the edge of a chasm. At its center floated a sphere of light, enormous and pulsing, threads of energy spiraling from it into the ground. It was beautiful, terrifyingly so. The voice thundered again, louder now. "Her kind is impure. Her body rejects the flow. Return her to balance." Eliara trembled. "It believes my paralysis disrupts the harmony of life energy." "That's ridiculous," Ronan said. "You're not broken, you're just inconveniently built." "Urine doesn't see it that way," she whispered. "Everything must function, or it is discarded." He clenched his fists. "Then your planet's overdue for an update." A tendril of light lashed out from the sphere, striking the ground near them. Ronan stumbled back, shielding her. His exosuit's shield flickered, sputtering to life for half a second before dying again. "Right," he said grimly. Note to self, alien god laser, bad touch. Eliara raised her hand weakly, her long ears twitching. The tendrils paused, as if recognizing her. "It's testing me," she murmured. "To see if I will surrender." "Well, don't," he said. "Surrendering is my job. I'm way better at it." Despite the chaos, she smiled faintly. "You joke when the universe threatens you. Humor's cheaper than therapy." The sphere pulsed brighter, its voice resonating deep in their chests. One of you may leave. The other must remain. Ronan didn't hesitate. Guess who's not taking turns? He lifted her higher, scanning for an escape route. The scanner beeped frantically, then pointed toward a narrow fissure in the far wall. There. Maybe a tunnel. He ran, the vines lighting up beneath his boots. Energy flared around them, bolts of light striking like angry lightning. One hit close enough to singe his sleeve. "Hey," he yelled upward. "Stop trying to smite us. We're having a moral moment down here." The voice did not seem impressed. "Return her, and you may live." Ronan kept running. You'd think an ancient planetary AI could take a hint. Eliara's breath grew shallow. "It's drawing power from me," she whispered. "It wants to absorb what remains of my life force. If it succeeds, it'll reset the surface balance." "Reset? As in, blow it all up?" "Yes." He didn't slow. "All right. New plan, don't let the apocalypse happen before breakfast." They reached the fissure just as another tendril slashed the ground behind them. Ronan dove through the gap, rolling painfully to the other side. The tunnel beyond was narrow, shimmering with faint metallic veins. The sphere's glow faded behind them. He set her down gently, chest heaving. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he looked at her and said, "You okay?" "I'm alive," she said softly. "For now. Good enough for me." He slumped against the wall, exhausted. "If we get out of this, I'm starting a religion. Worship will involve naps." She smiled faintly, then winced as a tremor ran through the tunnel. "It's angry. It'll follow us." "Let it," he said. "I've been yelled at by worse. Worse than a sentient planet. My mother." Eliara gave a small, breathless laugh, and for a brief moment, the tunnel didn't feel so dark. The glow from the walls dimmed to a steady rhythm, almost like breathing. Ronan's wrist console flickered again. A faint voice came through the static. "Ronan? Are you reading this? It's Captain Horowitz. We've locked onto your signal, preparing retrieval." He blinked, then grinned. "About time." Eliara looked at him. "You'll leave?" "Not without you," he said. Her expression softened, uncertain. "My people will never accept me again." "Then maybe it's time you find new people." The tunnel rumbled, dust raining down. From the far end, light began to pulse, a slow, deliberate heartbeat that wasn't the planet's this time. Something else was waking. Ronan sighed, cracking his neck. "And here I was hoping for 5 minutes of peace." Eliara closed her eyes. "You won't get that on Urine." He smiled. "Didn't think so." The light grew brighter, filling the tunnel, and together they braced for whatever new impossible thing was about to happen next. The tunnel narrowed, forcing Ronan to carry Eliara more carefully, one arm supporting her back while the other clutched the glowing veins in the wall for balance. Every step made the metallic strands hum, a low vibration that resonated through the bones, as if the planet itself were laughing, or warning them. Eliara's ears twitched nervously, catching every subtle echo, and she muttered under her breath in her native tongue. Ronan, unable to understand, guessed she was either cursing him or making a detailed shopping list for the afterlife. "Please tell me that was a grocery list," he said. "Mostly," she replied, smirking faintly. "With an interlude of curses." He nodded solemnly. "Practical. I approve." They continued, stepping carefully over phosphorescent pools that shimmered in impossible shades of green and violet. Each pool reacted to their presence, ripples of energy radiating outward, turning the veins in the walls into a living map of glowing pulses. Ronan scanned the tunnel with his cracked wrist device, trying not to panic as the readings fluctuated wildly. "Okay," he muttered, "this is either a planetary immune system or Urine is one giant mood ring." Eliara laughed softly. The sound echoed strangely, bending through the stone, almost like the tunnel itself had a sense of humor. "You humans find absurdity even when death is imminent," she said. "Absurdity is my cardio," Ronan replied. "Keeps the blood flowing. Less chance of dying quietly." As they advanced, a faint mist began to rise from the pools, curling around them like sentient fingers. The mist carried spores that clung to their skin, emitting a faint warmth. Ronan waved his hands through it. "Move carefully." "Intent?" Ronan asked. "I mostly intend to survive and occasionally swear at things that try to kill me." One of the constructs pulsed faster, resonating with Iliara's voice. She raised her hand slightly, and the construct paused. "It recognizes me," she said softly. "It knows I am not entirely broken, though my body is flawed." "Flawed?" Ronan repeated. "You survived being thrown down a well. That's peak fitness in my book." She smirked faintly, then frowned. "Fitness does not equate to acceptance here." They moved forward cautiously. Each step made the ground hum beneath their feet, and the constructs shifted, forming patterns that seemed almost like a warning. Suddenly, one filament shot out toward Ronan, wrapping around his arm. His suit sparked, sending a small plume of smoke. "Ow! Friendly?" he asked. Iliara moved swiftly, placing her hand on the filament. It vibrated under her touch, then retracted. "They respond to touch. Not hostility," she explained. "A threat makes them lethal." "Good to know," he said, rubbing his arm. "And here I thought we were going to make friends over tea." The tunnel widened into a massive cavern. Stalactites of glowing crystal hung from the ceiling, their tips radiating waves of energy that mingled with the floor's phosphorescent veins. At the center floated a sphere of liquid light, larger than anything Ronan had ever seen. It pulsed slowly, rhythmically, as if breathing. "That is the core," Iliara whispered. "It regulates the flow of energy through the planet. It senses imbalance, imperfection, and fear." Ronan swallowed. "Great. Fear's kind of my specialty." As they approached, the sphere expanded, tendrils of light weaving toward them. Ronan instinctively raised his arms, holding Iliara behind him. "Okay, friendly light ball," he said, "let's negotiate. I've got a human charm package, mostly sarcasm, minor heroics, 0 cents." Iliara touched his arm. "It does not understand charm. It understands proof, proof that life, even flawed life, has value." Ronan's eyes widened. "Proof, huh? Got it. Stand back while I explain the human concept of surviving being thrown into existential voids." She rolled her eyes. "It does not care for human concepts." "Right," he muttered. "Then let's demonstrate physically. I'm about to be heroic, possibly stupid, but definitely wet from all this glowing water." The tendrils pulsed, responding to his heartbeat, synchronized in rhythm with his pulse. The core seemed to hum with amusement, or maybe curiosity. Iliara, despite her paralysis, straightened slightly, her hands glowing faintly as energy from the sphere danced along her skin. "It senses your connection," she said softly. "You are tied now, not by rope, but by trust." Ronan nodded. "Trust, huh? That's new. Usually, I just tie people with actual rope." The sphere pulsed brighter, then receded slightly, almost shyly. The constructs around them shifted in acknowledgement. Iliara smiled faintly. "We have passed the first test." Ronan exhaled, wiping sweat and phosphorescent residue from his face. "First test. That's encouraging. How many more are there?" "Many," she said. "And each one is harder than the last. But we have something most do not, combined will." "Combined will?" he asked, grinning despite exhaustion. "I thought we had combined bad luck and questionable decision-making." She laughed softly, the sound mingling with the core's pulse. "Perhaps. But in this place, that is enough. And as they moved deeper into the cavern, the light of the core shimmered around them, guiding their path yet daring them to falter, each pulse a challenge, each glow a reminder that survival here required more than strength, it required heart, humor, and courage in equal measure. The cavern seemed endless, though every step revealed new wonders that defied logic. Bioluminescent fungi clung to walls, pulsing with soft violet light, while thin ribbons of energy wove through the air like living threads. Ronan squinted, trying to keep track of which glowing vein led where, muttering, note to self, Green-S interior decorators have no sense of scale, or danger. Eliera, perched awkwardly on his back, flicked her long ears at every spark and hum. Are you always this sarcastic when facing death? She asked. Only when the universe insists on dramatic entrances, he replied, adjusting her slightly. Besides, fear is bad for posture. They reached a wide plateau, where the veins in the stone formed concentric circles around a shallow pool of glowing liquid. It wasn't water exactly, more a viscous substance that shimmered in every color of the spectrum. The tendrils from the core seemed to react to it, arcing lazily in patterns that looked almost deliberate. Ronan knelt to examine the pool, holding his scanner over the surface. Well, this is new. Conductivity off the charts, and some kind of bioluminescent reaction I've never seen before. It's like the planet is caffeinated. Eliera laughed softly, brushing a glowing tendril aside. It is alive. And aware. Every step you take here is observed. Observed, judged, probably taking notes, Ronan muttered. He dipped a finger into the pool, instantly recoiling. The liquid pulsed in response, rippling outward in shimmering waves. Okay, definitely alive. And slightly annoyed. Annoyed or protective? Eliera asked. The core is testing us. It wants proof that you do not intend harm, and that I am worth saving. Ronan blinked. Worth saving? I thought that was obvious. I saved you from a bottomless pit, and my resume includes surviving 4 galactic bureaucracies. She smirked faintly. Impressive. But not enough here. As they stepped carefully around a pool, the ground beneath them shivered. Ronan's boots slid on the slick surface of glowing moss, and he almost fell. You know, he said, steadying himself, I expected monsters or lasers. I did not expect the floor to have mood swings. Eliara's ears twitched. It responds to doubt. Keep your confidence steady, human. Ronan straightened. Confidence, check. Terrible jokes, check. Heroic stupidity, double check. Let's do this. A low hum began to rise from the ground, vibrating through the stone and into their bones. The tendrils lifted from the walls and swirled around them, forming shapes that resembled eyes, observing, calculating. One of the energy constructs detached itself from the lattice above, descending slowly. Its form shimmered like liquid crystal, its edges flickering between geometric precision and chaotic fluidity. It wants a demonstration, Eliera whispered. Proof of your connection. Ronan looked at her, bewildered. Connection? Like, holding hands and singing Kumbaya. No, she said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Like trust. Like willingness to risk yourself for me, not out of duty, but choice. He grinned. Choice, huh? That's lucky. I was just about to demonstrate extreme bravery with a side of dumb luck. The construct hovered in front of them, pulsing with light. A sudden wave of energy shot out, brushing Ronan and Eliera. His body tingled, her skin glowed brighter in response. Okay, he muttered, that's invigorating. Possibly mildly lethal. Eliera touched his shoulder. The glow on her fingertips expanded, reaching out into the construct. The lattice of light shivered, almost like it hesitated. It feels, your resolve, she said softly. It recognizes intent. Ronan raised an eyebrow. Recognition, good. Approval, optional. She shook her head. You must act, not wait for approval. Ronan took a deep breath, stepping forward so that the glowing tendrils curled around them both. He placed one hand on Eliara's, holding her close. We survived together, he said simply, letting the words echo in the cavern. I choose you. Not because I have to, but because I want to. The tendrils paused, the entire cavern vibrating with anticipation. The core's pulsing slowed, then shifted into a steady rhythm. The constructs around them shimmered, then folded inward, retracting toward the sphere. The pool's surface calmed, the glowing veins stabilizing into a gentle, harmonic pattern. Eliara's eyes widened. You made it understand. Understand what? He asked, still holding her hand. That humans are stubborn and weirdly optimistic. More than that, she said, her voice soft. That life, even imperfect, has value. That trust can defy fear. He laughed lightly. Okay, I'll take that. Heartfelt and slightly overdramatic. My kind of review. The sphere of light shrank slowly, becoming less imposing, more like a guardian now than a judge. A narrow path opened ahead, lined with floating shards of crystal that guided them upward. Eliara tilted her head toward it. This way. The core has granted passage. Ronan followed, still carrying her, dodging occasional sparks from the walls. Granted passage, sounds official. Should I bow or salute? Smile, she said, and keep moving. We are not out of danger yet. Right, he muttered. I've been doing that since the well. Step 1, don't die. Step 2, look heroic-ish. Step 3, try not to curse in alien languages. Eliara laughed softly, the sound mingling with the light pulses of the core. You are strange, she said. And you are glowing, he replied. Strangely impressive. Balance achieved. They continued along the path, moving upward, leaving behind the pool and the constructs. The cavern began to narrow again, winding like a spiral staircase, but the light of the core pulsed faintly through the walls, guiding them. For the first time since the fall, Ronan felt a measure of hope. Eliara, though exhausted, seemed steadier too. Her ears flicked at every hum and whisper, yet her eyes glimmered with something deeper, trust, perhaps, or relief. She had faced the core's judgment, survived its tests, and discovered that even the most rigid, ancient system could bend under courage and connection. Ronan glanced at her. You know, he said, if we make it out of here, I think we deserve a drink. Preferably something that doesn't glow. She smiled faintly. I will drink whatever you choose, human. He grinned, adjusting her carefully on his back. Excellent. Adventure, life, and caffeine-free alien beverages. That's the plan. Now let's climb. As they ascended, the walls shimmered with pulsating energy, the cavern alive with light and sound. For the first time, the dark, twisted depths of Urine felt less threatening and more like a challenge, one they might just survive together, step by precarious step. The narrow tunnel opened suddenly onto a jagged cliff, glowing under the light of Urine's twin moons. Ronan set Eliara down carefully, flexing sore arms and muttering, okay, note to self, carry her less like luggage, more like a hero, if only I remembered how. Eliara's long ears twitched in amusement. You exaggerate your heroism, she said softly, but your foolishness keeps us alive. He gave a mock bow. Why thank you. I take my accolades seriously, especially when they involve near-death experiences and glowing alien magic. The cliff stretched high above the planet's surface, sharp rock jutting into the air like teeth. Below, the desert winds swirled in violent, electric currents that shimmered with Urine's peculiar energy, creating whirlpools of luminous dust. Somewhere down there, her family had likely assumed she was lost forever. Ronan gritted his teeth. You know, he muttered, if your relatives had a Yelp page, I'd give it a solid 1-star review. For negligence, cruelty, and dramatic flair. Eliara smirked faintly. They are traditionalists. Traditionalists, he repeated. Right. Throwing family members down wells is traditional, but saving them is apparently optional. She ignored him, scanning the jagged rocks with her psychic sense. There's a ledge. Not wide, but strong enough. We can move forward, but the currents below will test our balance. Balance, he muttered, eyeing the ledge. That's one thing I didn't pack in my survival kit. My kit included duct tape, coffee, and questionable optimism. You'll need more than optimism, she said, her eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. The currents here resonate with the planet's energy. One misstep, and you'll be swept away, possibly forever. He looked down at the luminous whirlwinds, shivering despite the exosuit. Forever. That's slightly dramatic, don't you think? Not on Urine, she replied. They started across the narrow ledge, Ronan's boots crunching against crystalline rock that vibrated faintly with energy. He kept one hand on the wall, the other wrapped securely around Eliara's waist. The winds whipped past, making her hair float and his exosuit hiss with static. I hate everything about this, he muttered, but it's also kind of exhilarating. Eliara's ears flicked at the sound of the wind, and she laughed softly. You speak as though exhilaration excuses peril. It doesn't, he said. But it distracts me from screaming like a human stuck in a blender. Halfway across, a spike of energy shot from the cliffside, arcing toward them. Ronan ducked instinctively, and the arc passed harmlessly overhead, leaving trails of sparkling light. That's new, he muttered, glancing at Eliara. They are the guardians of the currents, she explained. They respond to energy patterns. If they detect hostility, they strike. Ronan glanced at her skeptically. Hostility? I haven't had a hostile thought in days. Unless counting your family as a threat counts. Eliara shook her head. It is not personal. It senses intent, not past actions. They continued, step by careful step, until a massive gust knocked Ronan slightly off balance. He stumbled, nearly pulling Eliara with him. Whoa! Gravity! You're drunk, right? She tightened her grip. Careful, human. The currents are stronger here. Focus. He straightened, muttering, focus. Right. Focus like a caffeinated squirrel in zero gravity. As they reached the other side, the cliff opened into a cavern of floating islands, suspended in a shimmering magnetic field. Each island was covered in crystalline growths that refracted the twin moon's light, creating a kaleidoscope effect. Energy currents flowed between the islands, arcs of bright violet electricity that hummed in harmony with the planet itself. Ronan looked around, awestruck. Okay, wow. That's absurdly beautiful. Who designed this? Nature? Insane alien architects? Eliara's gaze was serious. The firstborn built these structures. They were the original inhabitants of Urine, far older than any current civilization. These islands are their way of channeling energy through the planet's crust. Only those who understand balance may cross safely. Balance, Ronan muttered, my favorite concept. Alongside common sense and mild survivability. The first gap between islands pulsed with a bright violet arc, almost like a miniature lightning strike frozen in time. Eliara's hands glowed faintly as she projected psychic energy toward it, stabilizing the gap long enough for them to step across. You must trust me, she said. And trust yourself. One hesitation, and we fall. Ronan grinned. Trust and stupidity, two things I excel at. They leapt from one floating island to the next, Ronan carrying her, dodging arcs of energy that snapped and fizzed in the magnetic field. He stumbled twice, and each time Eliara's psychic sense corrected their trajectory midair. Careful, she warned, though the faint smile on her lips betrayed amusement. Careful, he said. I've been careful since the well. My level of careful is now labeled legendary. On the final island before the exit, a colossal energy sentinel emerged, hovering with wings of pure light. Its form shifted constantly, refracting the twin moons into dazzling patterns. The hum of its energy resonated through the floating islands, vibrating the veins in the stone beneath them. Iliera placed a hand on Ronan's shoulder. It will challenge us. Not with violence, but with perception. It tests resolve, courage, and the truth of our intentions. Perception tests. Oh, that's easy, he muttered. I excel at pretending I know what I'm doing. The sentinel projected a field of light, forcing them to navigate a shifting labyrinth of floating crystalline bridges. Each misstep caused arcs of energy to flare dangerously, threatening to sweep them into the glowing void below. Ronan's muscles burned, sweat beading beneath his helmet, yet he pressed on. You are brave, Iliera whispered. But more than bravery, you are present. That is what it senses. I'm present, he panted. I'm exhausted, mildly terrified, and increasingly sticky from alien mist. Does that count? She laughed softly. It counts as survival. With one final leap, they landed on solid ground, beyond the Sentinel's test. The energy pulses receded, stabilizing the floating islands, and the Sentinel bowed slightly before dissolving into streams of violet light. Ronan slumped against the crystalline rock, breathing heavily. Congratulations, he muttered. We survived floating death traps, angry energy, and metaphysical judgment. I'll file this under Tuesday. Iliera smiled faintly. We are close to the surface now. But your trials are not yet over. Above awaits the world that betrayed me. Ah, Ronan said, wincing at her tone. Family reunions. My specialty. Perfect timing. She extended her hand, and he took it. Together, they looked upward, where faint starlight hinted at the surface. Beyond it, her people waited, along with the cruel traditions that had thrown her down the well. Yet for the first time since their fall, Ronan felt a strange certainty. They had crossed impossible paths, survived challenges that bent the planet itself, and the bond they shared had become something the core of Urine recognized, perhaps even respected. Ready? He asked, hoisting her slightly. She nodded. Ready. And cautious. Always cautious. Cautious, he repeated. My least favorite word, but I'll try. With the moons above casting long, silver shadows, they stepped forward together, toward the surface and toward the reckoning that awaited. The surface of Urine emerged before them like a harsh revelation, bathed in the pale light of the twin moons. The desert stretched endlessly, dotted with jagged rock formations that cast long, eerie shadows. Ronan set Iliera down carefully, feeling the cool sand beneath his boots for the first time in what felt like an eternity. She flexed her fingers, her long ears twitching as though reacquainting themselves with open air. Her family waited at a distance, their silhouettes stiff and rigid, framed by torches that flickered violet and green. Iliara's father stepped forward, robes swaying unnaturally in the thin breeze. His eyes were hard, unforgiving. Iliera, he said, voice echoing across the sands, you have returned. Yes, she said, her voice steady. I have returned. And I have learned something in the deep. Ronan shifted beside her, hands on his hips. She survived being thrown into a bottomless pit. That alone deserves an award. Preferably with cake. Iliera shot him a glare, but it was faintly amused. The deep tested me, she continued, ignoring the human commentary. It judged me. It forced me to confront fear, isolation, and judgment. And I survived. Her mother's hands trembled slightly, the faint glow of torchlight reflecting off her tear-streaked face. We thought you were lost, she whispered. And we believe tradition required it, Iliera said, voice rising. But tradition is not always justice. Ronan cleared his throat. Speaking of justice, hi. I'm Ronan Vale, human, chronic hero, occasional wisecracker. I might have jumped into a giant well for this lady. So yes, I get some credit here too. Eliara's father frowned at him. You aided her. I did, Ronan said, with the kind of grin that dared judgment. She's stubborn, clever, and can survive things most species would consider fatal. I figured, why not help? Her father's eyes narrowed, and the desert air seemed to shiver. You are human. Your kind is unpredictable. Dangerous. And yet charming, Ronan added. Sometimes terrifying, yes, but mostly charming. Eliara stepped between them. Father, the deep did not reject me. The core did not condemn me. I am alive, and stronger than before. And I am not broken. Not in body, and certainly not in spirit. A long silence stretched over the sand, the only sound the faint hum of the desert's magnetic winds. Slowly, her father lowered his staff. Perhaps, we have been blind, he said quietly. Perhaps in seeking perfection, we lost sight of life itself. Or maybe, Ronan said, nudging gently, you just needed a human to show you what survival looks like. Lucky for you, I'm available for motivational seminars. Eliara smiled faintly, allowing a small spark of humor to break the tension. Ronan, always irreverent. He shrugged. What can I say? It's a gift. Or a curse. Depends on the day. Her mother stepped forward, hands trembling as she reached toward Eliara. My child, she whispered. Forgive us. We failed you. Eliara's eyes softened. I forgive you, she said, though her tone carried steel. But forgiveness does not erase the past. It only allows us to move forward. The desert wind swirled, carrying the faint resonance of the deep from beneath the sands. Eliara turned slightly, her long ears flicking toward the distant horizon. The deep has taught me that life is not measured by mobility, or by tradition, but by courage, connection, and choice. And by questionable human antics, Ronan added. Eliara rolled her eyes, though the faintest smile appeared. Yes, Ronan, even by human antics. Her father stepped closer, the torchlight glinting against his robes. You have survived where none expected you to. You have returned enlightened, and unbroken. We must reconsider the ways of our people. Ronan gave her a side glance. Translation, they might still be stubborn, but slightly less murderous. Eliara nodded. Yes. Perhaps it is time for change. A sudden pulse of violet light shimmered across the desert floor. The tendrils of energy from the deep reached toward them briefly, then retracted, as though acknowledging her resolve. Ronan squinted. Oh, look. Even the planet approves. High five for team survival. Eliara shook her head with faint amusement. One day, you will learn to take solemnity seriously. Never, he said firmly. But I'll settle for making history together. Preferably with fewer wells and more breathable air. Her family took tentative steps closer, their stances less rigid, the harsh lines of judgment softening under the glow of the moons and the shimmering energy. Eliara looked at them, then at Ronan, then back at the desert horizon. The world beyond this well, beyond the deep, will judge us as it will, she said. But we have survived its trial. And we will survive together. Ronan grinned, leaning slightly toward her. Together, huh? Sounds like a plan. Full of adventure, peril, and the occasional sarcastic comment. Eliara allowed herself a faint laugh. Yes, she said. Even with the sarcasm, we endure. The twin moons rose higher, casting long silver shadows over the sand, and for the first time in her life, Eliara felt the weight of abandonment lift, replaced with a spark of hope that stretched beyond tradition, beyond fear, beyond the cruelty that had once defined her world. Ronan nudged her gently. So, what now? She looked toward the horizon, eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. Now, we live. And we change the world, one small, improbable step at a time. He grinned. Perfect. But first, I vote for food. Preferably not glowing. And maybe something with coffee. She shook her head, but the faintest laugh escaped her lips. Together, human and alien, flawed yet unbroken, they stepped forward into the desert night, toward a future neither tradition nor fear could dictate, bound by trust, courage, and an improbable, unwavering bond. The first rays of Urine's distant sun cut across the horizon, bathing the desert in pale gold and violet hues. Ronan squinted against the light, stretching sore muscles, and muttered, "Well, if surviving a sentient well and floating death traps doesn't earn me a vacation, I don't know what will." Eliara, seated beside him on a rocky outcrop, gave a faint, amused shake of her head. "You complain like a human," she said softly. "And that's why I survive," he said with a grin. "Complaining keeps me alert. Also, terrifyingly entertaining." She smiled faintly, long ears twitching in the warm breeze. "You have grown. I see now that fear cannot bind you, nor tradition dictate your path. You act despite uncertainty. And yet," she paused, eyes meeting his, "you carry hope, even for those who have wronged you." Ronan glanced toward her, the first real quiet moment in days, and felt a subtle shift inside himself. He realized that courage wasn't just about surviving danger, it was about the choices made when survival seemed impossible. Eliara had survived the deep, but he had survived alongside her. And through it, he had learned that trust and connection could form a bond stronger than any fear or cruelty. "You think the core will follow us back to the surface?" he asked, nodding toward the faintly glowing veins still visible beneath the desert floor. "It will observe," she replied. "But it will no longer judge. It has witnessed choice, resilience, and unity. It knows now that life, even imperfect, deserves preservation." Ronan chuckled softly. "So, we're approved by an ancient planetary AI. That's one for the resume." Eliara laughed, the sound ringing like chimes in the warm morning air. "You are strange, human. But your presence has changed me. Not just physically, not just through the journey, but in my understanding of what it means to live fully." They began walking toward the distant city, where her people had begun to gather, whispers of awe and disbelief following them like shadows. Word had spread of Eliara's survival, of her confrontation with the deep, and of the human who had leaped into a forgotten well for her. Her family approached cautiously, expressions softened by the undeniable truth of her return. Her father stopped before them, eyes no longer harsh, but reflective. "Eliara," he said quietly, "we were blind in our adherence to tradition. You have survived where we expected failure. You have returned not broken, but stronger. We owe you recognition, an apology." Eliara inclined her head. "Apologies are accepted, but only if they are followed by change." Her mother stepped forward, holding out her hands. "Then let us rebuild, with understanding, not fear. With respect, not custom alone." Ronan looked between them, shrugging. "So, basically, the entire civilization needs a software update." "Got it. I can manage that." Eliara's faint smile betrayed amusement. "With guidance, perhaps." As they moved into the city, Eliara's long ears flicked at the sounds of life, creatures calling, machines humming, citizens speaking in tones of wonder and caution. The city itself seemed to pulse in recognition, vibrant veins of energy connecting its towers and walkways like arteries of life. Ronan followed, careful not to trip over his own clumsiness, yet marveling at the alien architecture. "You know," he muttered, "I didn't think surviving a sentient well would qualify me as an interstellar hero. But apparently, here I am." Eliara glanced at him. "You have been more than a hero. You have been a companion, a witness, and a protector. You have allowed me to see that survival is not just an act, but a choice, a declaration of will against fear and oppression. And you've taught me," he said quietly, "that bravery isn't about recklessness. It's about caring enough to risk everything, even when the odds are absurd." They approached her family, and the elders nodded in quiet acknowledgement. Whispers rippled through the gathered citizens, some shocked, others inspired. Eliara stepped forward, addressing her people with a newfound confidence. Let the traditions of fear and rejection end. Let us embrace life, however it comes, flawed, unpredictable, and luminous. Let us recognize courage where it exists, and support it in those who need it most. The crowd remained silent for a heartbeat, then erupted into murmurs of agreement. Slowly, the citizens began to approach, offering gestures of respect and reconciliation. Eliara's father placed a hand on her shoulder. You have changed us, child, he said, voice thick. And perhaps, together, we can become better than the sum of our fear. Ronan adjusted his gear, a small smile on his face. Well, if this is the part where everyone learns a lesson, I call dibs on being called legendary first. Eliara laughed, and for a moment, the weight of betrayal, fear, and darkness lifted completely. The twin moons still shone, the desert wind hummed with energy, and Yrene itself seemed to pulse in quiet approval. Ronan glanced at Eliara. So, what now? Take over the planet? Write a book about the well? Or just get a coffee? She shook her head, smiling. We live. We learn. We change what must be changed, one step at a time. And perhaps, she added, we do it together. Together, he echoed, and offered his arm. She took it, and for the first time in a long while, they walked not as hunted or helpless, but as equals, bonded by trust, courage, and the improbable chain of events that had brought them here. The city stretched ahead, alive and humming with potential. Eliara raised her gaze to the horizon, the twin suns rising higher, casting long shadows over the desert sands. She felt the strength of her own choices, the weight of survival, and the power of a connection forged in the depths of a living, sentient world. Ronan nudged her lightly. You know, alien princess, if surviving wells, sentient planets, and floating death traps doesn't make you a legend, I don't know what does. Eliara laughed, a sound full of light and warmth. Perhaps, human, we are both legends now. Legends not of power or perfection, but of resilience, choice, and trust. And as they stepped fully into the city, hand in hand, the desert winds carried their laughter across Yrene, a promise that even in a world of tradition, fear, and judgment, courage, humor, and connection could shape a new path, leaving the past behind and lighting the way forward.